Welcome to Sports Court. I'm Tamara Holder. The Supreme Court will soon go back into session without one of its most memorable and controversial voices, that of the late Justice Antonin Scalia. One case that the court may have to decide is whether the NCAA has to pay college athletes. Now that the Supreme Court is without arguably its most conservative justice, do athletes have a better shot of getting paid to play? Joining me with her take is Kelly Whiteside, assistant professor of the sports media and journalism at Montclair State University. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I want to just kind of reverse into the case, not go into too much of the legal stuff, but basically the lower court in the O'Bannon versus NCAA case said that athletes could get paid $5,000. The appeals court said no, and now they have 90 days to appeal it to the Supreme Court or file a petition. They have a deadline, it's ticking. But you've been writing about this, whether athletes should get paid, for years. What have you seen as far as the trend? Has anything changed?
I think that we got to this point, it's significant. The fact that this, appeal could be filed and it might go before the Supreme Court, there's a lot of ifs and uncertainty, is really significant. And I think the other thing is that athletes now are realizing that they have more power than perhaps they realized in the past.
How are they realizing that, though?
I think, athletes in the past, in the 70s, the Muhammad Ali, the John Carlos, Tommy Smith, really took capital in the fact that they could make a difference. And I think what's happened in society with athletes the last couple of years, as we've seen the athletes at Missouri sort of fight against racism, that they have a voice.
Right.
And I think the O'Bannon case really brought that voice to the forefront, and I think more lawsuits will continue to follow in the same regard.
Do you think it's also related to money? Because the article I was reading about that you'd written, I believe, in 2004, so 12 years ago, you were talking about TV rights that were a few $100 million. And now ESPN inked a $7.3 billion deal for the college football playoffs in 2012. The SEC earned in 2015 $476 million just for the college football bowl games. So are the athletes saying, like, this money is just ridiculous, why don't we get a piece?
Exactly. And for athletes, the whole motto of pay for play, they see their likeness, they see their jerseys being sold. And in the case of O'Bannon, they see their likeness on video games. And they say, what about us? We're struggling here. Yes, our tuition is paid, but where is this money going, and can't we see some of it?
Do you think that it's also seeing that the highest paid people in the state at these public institutions are the coaches of basketball, coaches of football, and the guys, a lot of them, 1% of 1%, go into the professional world?
Yeah, I mean, and when you have coaches making, $5-6 million a season, and you're a player and you can get into hot water with the NCAA if you, take a free meal, it's hard to reconcile those two things.
And how has public opinion shifted, if at all, in the past few years or decades that you've been covering this?
I think, it's very balanced, and I think it's remained very balanced. One side's saying, well, they get a free ride. I'd love not to have college tuition to pay for, after I graduate. The flip side is exactly those numbers that you pointed out. It's like monopoly money. It's so much money. College sports is, estimated, $13 billion industry, and the NCAA made, I think, $900 million. And it's like so removed from reality in terms of the athletes. So I think the public sees both sides of it. It's just, I think now that it's more in the mainstream discussion, it's going to continue.
Well, we'll see what happens if this goes to the Supreme Court or not. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your expertise on this subject.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching. Sports Court is adjourned.